it's Quana back again with another review. Hope you guys are doing awesome. I know you guys are going to get me because I am an entire week and some change late with my Handmaid's Tale episode 9 review, which is putting me slightly behind with my Handmaid's Tale finale review as well. But guys, I'm just going to go ahead and lay it out there. I got hit with the id. I ran for the id for a whole 2.5 years, and it got me, y'all. And so, unfortunately, while I had watched episode 9, literally my home test came back positive the night of episode 9's drop, and by that evening, although I managed to stay awake, I was done for. And so we are a week behind over here, but hopefully that has allowed you all to have some time to digest episode 9. And I am going to review this without any spoilers for the finale or any input from the finale, just giving you guys my raw thoughts and opinions, having had an opportunity to watch episode 9 multiple times due to the fact that I was just literally in the house for days on end trying to recover. And so if I sound a little raspy, it's because I'm still all in here with the ick of it all. Thankfully, I had gotten my shots and everything, so I'd like to think maybe I didn't get it as bad as I would have without all of those things, but it was bad. 0 out of 10, do not recommend. Do what you can to avoid it. If you've already had it before, you definitely know what I mean. It was the worst of the worst. But that's enough for all of that. I'm going to go ahead and get into this episode because this episode was slightly wild. And Bruce, if you watch this video, don't hate me. I did enjoy the episode, but I have thoughts, I have opinions and questions and ideas. So I'm just going to dive right on in to the recap and then give you guys my takes and my thoughts and ideas. Hopefully, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget later on in the video to subscribe to the channel. We are steadily growing over here. I'm trying my best to reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and you can help me do that by joining me over here at Her Real Review, where we like to talk about shows and movies. I'm also going to be reviewing all of the first season of Interview with the Vampire, and I will be reviewing Wakanda Forever because I'll be going to see it tomorrow, fully masked up, but I will be going to see it tomorrow. So yeah, lots of big things coming over here to the channel. And of course, come back after watching this video for my season 9 finale video, which should be dropping later on this evening, on Thursday or Friday morning, okay? If you guys are interested and would like to go live this weekend, let me know because I'm all down for that as well. But let's just go ahead and get started into Allegiance, which picks up right at the end of episode 8, where Tuella takes that footage of Hannah and the Plum School and he orchestrates an air raid to attempt to rescue Hannah and the girls. This is the first time that we're seeing the American government try to strong arm Gilead and really seeing from a military standpoint them trying to hit back hard. And I really like, these are the things that I've been saying for weeks, that these are the parts of, I think, telling the story of Gilead that are really interesting and provide a different perspective. So far, all of the resistance to Gilead that we have been seeing has come from the ground, with the handmaids, with the Marthas, with the people who are most impacted. We haven't really seen a military stance in all of this, and so these are the things that I really like to see, that I think add in new dimension, new layers to it. And he introduces Luke and June to Commander Elijah Vance, a real commander, not a fake Gilead commander, who's going to lead the raid. He talks about how he's invested in the success of this. He has his own daughter named Emma. And so this really puts a face on this mission, and that other people, aside from the Bankholds, have something at stake here with rescuing these girls. I think this is an important moment that adds some nuance and some layers in the show, that other people outside of June's family are still impacted and being impacted by Gilead's actions. We also get a glimpse at what's going on in the girls' school, and we get to see baby girl Hannah, who is on the thumbnail of this video, because I think it's important to keep her in mind. I don't know if they're still, I don't know what the plans for Hannah's character is, especially going into season 6 and the ending of this season as well. But we get a chance to see the girls in their school, and most importantly, we get to see some things about Hannah, her art, her drawing. Most importantly, we get to see that she remembers her name, and that's such an important thing, and that she remembers how to write her name. She hasn't lost all of her sense of self. And remember the last time that we really got a glimpse of Hannah, in June, back when June was captured, and Hannah was really afraid of June. But we see that she still remembers a little bit about who she is, and even though she's learned perhaps to kind of curtail some of that, it's still within her. Unfortunately, the air raid is not a success, and all of the planes are shot down, including Commander Elijah Vance's, and everyone dies. And this is devastating, not only because I was really hoping that maybe somehow we were going to get a surprise and see that Hannah had been rescued, but also because we had just been introduced to this young commander. We know he has a family, and so there's so many greater implications when countries are at war and when politics are at play, that there are very real people behind all of these different things, and it's important to keep those things in mind. What happens after that is Lawrence calls June to continue to pitch his idea for New Bethlehem again, and tells her that, you know, she and Nick could be neighbors, and kind of like makes it seem to be like this poly romantic relationship that's going to be taking place in New Bethlehem. And of course, most importantly, that she can be there with Hannah. She can get a chance to reconnect with Hannah there. Lawrence is playing a dangerous game because he knows that Gilead is wrong. He knows that this is despicable, taking people's freedoms from them, stripping them of their bodily autonomy. He knows that these things are wrong, and he's so far deep in it, and now he's just trying to save face. And June really kind of calls him out on this. And while I can appreciate June for calling him out on his mess, I definitely think that what struck me with that scene is that she talks to him about, you know, like he says he is doing this for Eleanor. He wants to make Eleanor proud. And she's like, Eleanor hated who you'd become, hated what you had done, hated Gilead. Like, she was happy. She killed herself because she wanted to basically escape you. And we see that this is the first time that, you know, like Lawrence is showing like real emotion, because he truly did love Eleanor. This was his sweetheart. And so we see that this hits him. And when that happens, it made me think for a second that, you know, June does not know how to play a long game. June acts so much on emotions, and while that works for her so often, and going back to her advice, you know, to Serena last week about, you know, pretending to be a handmaid and kind of playing the long game, June herself doesn't always know how to play the long game. She knows how to hurt people with her words, and she knows how to act on emotion. And all I kept thinking is this Lawrence's villain arc, like being awakened to how bad he is? Is this going to awaken him and make him continue to fight to do better? Or is this going to make him just lean into the evilness? And that's really what kind of scared me in that moment. Eventually, you know, June is like, screw you, screw New Bethlehem. Like, no, I'm not doing any of this. And hangs up with him, and then goes off to see Mark and talks to Mark about this. Most importantly, I think, was that Lawrence wanted her to pledge some kind of allegiance to Gilead or to shun America. And she was like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not making Gilead to seem like they're the victims in all of this. Like, no, we're the victims in all of this. So when she goes to Tuello essentially wants the same thing. It's like, you could make a stand. You could pull the tide. You could come out and be the face, the mockingjay, as it were, of America. And she's invested in America, like not giving up, but she's not ready to be their mascot. She's not ready to be their great, you know, image. She's going to have to make a decision, because she's going to have to work with somebody, whether it's Mayday, whether it's America, Gilead, whatever. She's going to have to play the game if she is going to be the one to rescue Hannah, or else she's going to have to resort to being like Luke and just waiting for someone else to fix the problems. And ultimately, she finds out from Mark, that they reached out to Nick and tried to make Nick an immunity deal, and he turned them down. And so Mark arranges for her to meet with Nick and try to talk him into it. And unfortunately, because Nick's wife is pregnant, he's not willing to seemingly, negotiate a deal to come to Canada, because he has a family now in Gilead that he has to protect, and his wife is the daughter of the top commander. Now that is important. I knew that her dad was a commander, but I forgot that he was like the top commander, and so I made a note of that because I feel like that's an important detail that is somehow going to come into play, either as it pertains to like what Nick is able to do and how he's able to move about Gilead, or maybe even Rose, as we uncover more about Rose's character, I think, coming in. And so ultimately, they part ways. And then we get to the end of the episode where they're having a candlelight vigil for all of those soldiers who were killed. And we see Commander Elijah Vance's daughter there, little Emma. And we see June there, and Emma does the Pledge of Allegiance and stumbles. June goes to help her. I think this is the moment where we're seeing she pledges allegiance to America, and perhaps maybe she's going to be willing to work with the Americans a bit more. Maybe this is a bit of foreshadowing. But as they're pledging allegiance, some gunshots ring out and someone shoots at June and Emma, and we see bullet holes piercing that American flag, to me suggesting that perhaps America is done and over with. I don't know. I think there's a lot of symbolism and foreshadowing in that moment, and I don't know if this shows that America is never going to gain power back as America. It needs to be something else. I don't know. But let me know what you thought about that moment. June is able to save Emma and get her down to the ground. One of my favorite moments of this episode, because I thought the way it was shot was really well done. And then the decision to play Janelle Monáe's Americans, great song choice. One of my favorite songs is the outro song to her Dirty Computer album, a great album. If you've never listened to it, check it out. I went to see Janelle Monáe in concert. She's one of my favorite artists of all time. So that kind of wrapped up June and Luke's storyline. So I want to kind of go back to Commander Lawrence, because some stuff is going down with him as well over in Gilead. If you remember early in the season, Serena was there and she asked him, if he'd be willing to consider like marrying her, because she knows that Gilead is not going to tolerate him being a single man. And the commanders say as much. I think either Commander McKenzie or either Putnam says as much in one of the earlier episodes. Well, this is coming full circle, because now we have another widowed mother in Gilead by the name of Naomi Putnam, and between Lawrence and Aunt Lydia, they orchestrate for him to propose to Putnam. This is the most socially awkward scene I've ever seen in my life, where Aunt Lydia's like, you can't be a single mother living in your house. And she's like, oh yes, of course, our house is too big. Like, give us a little condo. And it's like, no, you can't be a single mother living in Gilead. Like, Gilead will not tolerate that. And so Lawrence is like, you can move in here. You and the kid can move in here. And I need to have Gilead values, so I need a wife. And basically, she's like, is this a proposal? I don't know what Lawrence is thinking, because to me, Serena would have been the better choice, because given everything that happened, Serena already kind of knows enough on Lawrence to kind of know where Lawrence's loyalties lie, and Naomi doesn't. Naomi is a much more dangerous choice, in my opinion. So it's really wild to me that he proposes to Naomi, but ultimately she agrees. And later in the episode, we see the wives, kind of the head honcho wives, kind of coming together. They're all surrounded around Rose, and really one of the wives is like throwing shade to Rose about the fact that like her baby could inherit genetic deformities, and Rose is like, well, we'll leave that to God or whatever. So we're seeing that, like, the hierarchy amongst the wives kind of continuing. We also see that Commander Mackenzie is there. This is, of course, Agnes, aka Hannah's parents. And Commander Mackenzie is patting them on the back for, like, rescuing the girls, for shooting down America, for strong arming the Americans. And we find out from his conversation with Nick that they're sending troops to the border to kind of pressure Canada to get rid of the Americans that are there in Canada, so that they will not let the Americans use their airspace anymore. And we also find out, like, from an international perspective, that the international community, countries like China and North Korea, are congratulating Gilead for taking down the Americans. This is definitely, like, I think, echoing things that are happening even now, but also showing that, like, Gilead remains strong. And sorry, it's COVID stuff. It's not fun, guys. But we get to see, like, the military aspect of it, and I really like those layers of seeing what's going on and seeing how all of this could maybe work itself out. I wish that they would show a little bit more of, like, the American side of things. So I'm really interested in maybe getting more from, like, Tuello, and getting more of, like, behind the scenes, and seeing maybe if June is willing to work with America, we'll be able to see more of that stuff. Ultimately, they go out. Putnam is there. Lawrence is there. And they're congratulating him on embracing their values, and he kind of suggests that he's from the surprise. I think also one of the things that comes out of that conversation with the men is that Commander Mackenzie is ready to take out June. Of course he is. This is the mother of his daughter, and he wants to eliminate the risk that she poses to Hannah. And so I think that kind of suggests that perhaps they are the ones that made this move on June at the end of the episode, and that it was something through Commander Mackenzie's side of things. My favorite storyline of the episode was Serena and Noah. We start the episode with Serena and Noah taking photos at the Wheelers and doing a photo shoot for Gilead's fertility center. And we see, again, this power play between Serena and Mrs. Wheeler, where they're arguing about whether Serena is going to bottle feed and pump for baby Noah, because ultimately, like, it's obvious Miss Wheeler thinks Noah's her kid, and she wants to eliminate Serena's involvement with him as much as possible. But it's so interesting because, one, Yvonne towers over the actress who plays Mrs. Wheeler, and so it's a very awkward scene. But two, it's interesting to see Serena being placed in the perspective of June. I both love this turn in the story, but also hate it because it's making me feel sympathy for Serena, and again, I don't like that. But ultimately, I do believe, like, Noah doesn't belong with the Wheelers. Like, they're horrible people as well. They're embracing Gilead's rules and regulations and whatnot. And Serena needs to really wake up to the evilness of Gilead. Like, she's still trying to get back to Gilead and trying to believe in Gilead. And at some point, that has to crumble. That mentality, for her to have, like, a full character arc, a redemption arc, she has to lose those values. And to me, she still possesses those Gilead ways. But Serena is still playing the game, and so she goes to Mr. Wheeler to apologize for her actions in shooting Ezra, and ultimately to pitch her idea that, like, she should be allowed to go to the fertility center with Noah and be the face of the fertility center. And she is able to persuade him, because he's a weak man, and he agrees. When she's putting Noah in the car, however, Mrs. Wheeler comes out and, like, threatens her to stay away from her husband, and it slaps the snot out of her. I think one of the important moments here is that we see just how weak Commander Wheeler is. And ultimately, his wife seems to be running things. But they eventually do go to the fertility center, and Serena is meeting and greeting people. She's selling Gilead. She's doing actually a great job of it, actually. But Mrs. Wheeler is not satisfied, and she, is like, I think you should go lay down. We'll keep Noah here with us, and tomorrow I'll just come with him by myself. And, Serena's trying to kind of talk her way out of it. She's like, well, you just leave him here with me. And he's like, well, I need to nurse him. Well, just give me a bottle. She didn't pump a bottle. And the maid who works with them, or the Martha who works with them, is apologizing for Serena. It's like, I should have packed a bottle. And we really get a chance to see, again, just how weak Commander Wheeler is. But they allow Serena to take Noah into like a back room to go nurse him. And at that moment, there's an exit there, and she's able to escape. She runs out, gets a car to stop her, and is able to get away. And I'm so interested to see what the show does with Serena at this point, because she's escaped the Wheelers, who definitely were trying to turn her into their handmaid and trying to keep her baby. And it'll be interesting because, again, I still think she believes in what Gilead has done, but it's evident that like she can't work within Gilead. So it'll be interesting to see from this point if we continue to get Serena, like how she's brought back into the storyline. Do we see her like trying to escape, working with the Marthas, the Mayday, what have you? Like what happens with her at this point? And so that's basically everything that happened in this episode. And I know it's a lot. It was a really good episode, directed by Bradley Whitford. Great actor. He did a great job directing, even though Commander Lawrence is not always my favorite person because I never know where we stand with him. And at this point, with this being the penultimate episode, I think it puts a lot of pieces in play, but also leads a lot of questions, because to me, there are so many people who perhaps, in the words of June, Gilead was already 5 steps ahead of the Americans. And it doesn't seem like any of our main people are acting playing chess. It feels like they're still playing checkers. And I'm ready to see like who is really thinking ahead. And I feel like everyone needs to start thinking ahead and planning and moving strategically in order to get what they want, especially if the story is going to continue. Now we're getting the Testament, so I don't feel as though the story is going to center on taking down Gilead this season. So the story that we're still dealing with is just with these individuals and what outcome, where they will be at the end of the show, whether or not June is going to be able to save Hannah at the end of the show. And I'm just interested to see what's going to happen. But I think some of the most interesting takeaways from this episode were, of course, to me, Hannah still knowing her identity. June seemingly maybe being more willing to align herself with America now that this attack on her life has happened. I also think that with the growing dissentiment of Canada, that we're going to see the refugees having to like leave. Like they can't stay. Like somebody just tried to kill June. Like they can't stay there. Nick and Rose, and how willing is she going to be to keep his secrets? How they're going to maybe perhaps escape Gilead if she's going to even want to, being that her dad is a commander, and what that means for him and June and maybe Nicole and all of that. And then also Commander Lawrence, like, is he still playing the game of trying to tear down Gilead, or are we going to see his villain arc? And ultimately, for the show to have a successful, I think, ending, other than just Gilead as a whole, we need someone to be the face of Gilead, someone for the audience to like cling to hate, our Thanos, if you will. And I'll be very interested to see if that person becomes Lawrence, because I have a feeling that Lawrence perhaps will take a villainous arc, especially if Aunt Lydia is moving into her redemption arc. will Commander Lawrence still continue to be a bystander, toe the fence, or will we get like a Commander Mackenzie rising up with more power to be the villain? So those are all of the questions and thoughts and ideas that I have ending episode 9. Again, I'm sorry that this video ran a little long. It was kind of struggle to get through, but thank you for staying with me. Thank you for being here with me. Hopefully you will check back in for my finale review and recap. And if you're interested in going live this weekend and talking more about the finale together, go down into the comments, let me know your thoughts, your ideas, and I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, toodles.